Good evening. I'm not going to talk about polynodal anything. My job is to sort of bring it back down a little bit to Japan here. And I want to just leave you a couple of ideas with sort of a particular focus on unleashing the soft power, unleashing the content economy here in Japan. Now, you're all familiar with technological progress, right? And you've got all these communication devices, because at the end it's all about you talking to your business partner, you talking to your wife, you sending a fax to your son. No, anyway, right? But you know, there's been an enormous acceleration. When the telephone was invented, it actually took 50 years to get to 50 million customers. And you see this accelerated throughout the days, and you see also that the winner is Pokémon. The winner is a Japanese product. And I think it's fair to say, that Japan's content creation, this soft power, whether you're a teenager in Sao Paulo, whether you're a 20-something in Nigeria, Japan is cool. This is the content that I want to have. There's also money in it. The Americans are very, very good at selling themselves, right? But when you actually look at the data, you find that, the Japanese soft power, the Japanese media franchises actually make much more money. Very important, Hello Kitty makes twice as much money as Disney Princess, year in, year out. So there's a lot of power in here. And if you actually add this all up, the top 10 content providers alone generate about 7.6 trillion yen. Why do I put 7 points? Very nice coincidence, because there's been a lot of discussion about, oh my God, poor Japan, all that hardware technology in the cloud, we're paying to Microsoft, we're paying to Amazon. Japan now has a digital deficit, right, of basically more than 7 trillion yen. Well, the top 10 content providers, if you can create another top 10 content providers, you're basically good. You're basically, and this focus of, oh, we got to build software, we got to build data centers, we got to build hardware, we're going to have to try to compete with NVIDIA. Why bother when at the end of the day, the real power that Japan has is actually on the soft side, on the content side. The other thing, of course, is that Japan is unbelievably techno-pragmatic. And I think you're aware, AI changes everything. It doesn't matter whether you and I run a yoga studio or whether we run Toyota. It enables changes in the process to get from A to B to C is going to happen in a very, very different way that we can't even imagine. Now, when you look at global surveys, are you nervous about AI killing humanity? Or are you excited about this? It's actually quite interesting. You get this split. The old world is actually more nervous than excited. But you see that actually the global south, the new world, is actually more excited than nervous. But the clear outsider is Japan, right? Are you nervous? Not really. We've dealt with technology since Gundam, right? It's an animated, it's Shinto, I don't know. Let's drink in an akachochin and discuss. But, they're also very, very pragmatic about, the implementation abilities of that. And when you look, for example, at Microsoft, their fastest rate of diffusion of AI applications is actually in Japan. It's not in the United States. So it's very, very pragmatic. And then, of course, for the content world, creates an enormous opportunity. How many of you remember this? Somebody, please. What was this? No? You?
I wasn't born, probably.
You weren't born. God, spring chicken. Okay, this is Kengo-kuma's Olympic Stadium, right? This was the closing ceremony of the Olympics, right? The empty Olympics, and God forbid, may we never have that ever again. But Japan at the closing did the first ever drone Hanabi Taikai. Right? The first, pyrotechnics, as it were, with drones. It was the first time on the global stage. And at the end of it, the drones go into this globe. Everybody holds hands and sings Kumbaya, and we know, Japan is cool. 3 weeks later, in Shanghai, the The Chinese will take a challenge, right? They did the drone Hanabi Taikai. But at the end, it wasn't some globe and feel-good factor. It was a QR code. You click on it, you get a free video game. So Japan has all this content. Japan has a mindset that actually adopts new technology very fast. Japan, from a design perspective, is very cool. But Japan sucks. Sorry, that's a technical term. Japan sucks at actually commercializing this. And this, I think, is something where your opportunity set, the opportunity set of the new venture that is being created here, IBEX, right? Actually connecting, the cool content side, the new technology, plus the aggressiveness that you need to have in order to compete in today's marketplace. And you see, of course, that Japan finally gets it, that economic growth does not come from taxes going up or taxes going down. Does not come from interest rates going up or going down. Economic growth actually comes from the number of entrepreneurs that you have in your society. For every 1 percentage point that the number of entrepreneurs goes up in your society, your potential economic growth rate goes up by about 0.6 percentage points. This used to be Israel, right? America, very, very strong, no question about this. Japan, technical term, chutohampa, neither here nor there, right? And of course, my home country, Germany, better than France, which is always very important. But the genesis, the philosophy of IBEX is exactly that. It's nice that you and I do a startup. In Japan, 80% of the startups go and do an IPO. Excellent for Daiwa Securities. They make very good fees. Terrible for the business. I run a PA portfolio, right, my personal investment. Blindly, 10 days after listing, I short the company. I've outperformed topics every year by a very, very significant margin, right? So what do? Can you actually create the entrepreneurial spirit within a startup? Can that then be implemented and spun into, not spin out, but spun into a large corporation that brings scale? That's, I think, where IBEX can actually bring a lot to the table too. You see, of course, Japan is very rich. My friends at the Ministry of Finance always say, oh my God, we've got so much debt, right? 260% of GDP. Forget that. Japan has massive savings. For every 1,000 yen of public debt, Japan has created 1,400 yen of private sector savings. So there's a lot of room to actually be energetic about. The problem is that the allocation of fiscal resources is starting to lag behind where it actually matters, which is public support for research and development. And if you and I want to set up a lobbying effort for Ms. Takaichi, invest not just in defense, not just in social security, but actually make sure you don't fall behind in this global race of fundamental research actually starting to come through here. And yes, of course, Japan does have hard power. There's no question about this, right? And it's interesting that combining the hard power that Japan has with the soft power, I mean, this is from 2 weeks ago, right? Hilarious, right? Shinkansen Japan rocks, better than the German trains, right? Other Shinkansens are a disaster from an economic perspective. In America, of course, they can't even build it, right? But it's interesting that Japan can continue to Kaizen, can continue to upgrade it with the content that actually captures the dreams, captures the imagination of the world. So I think that the proposition that IBEX brings to the market here, right? Nurturing, finding the startup community, connecting them into the big business world, I think actually is a wonderful place to be, because Japan is curious. Japan continues to do Kaizen, continuous improvement, and a Japanese would never talk about Japan the way I do, because you're way too humble, but go get it. Thank you very much.